Hello my lovely people, hoping you're well. We are back again with another Minding Your Mind session, where today we are going to be discussing about recognizing early warning signs of mental illness. If you're new here, welcome to our channel. We love you. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're a returning subscriber, karibu tena. Yeah, so we can begin. The reason as to why I'm doing this video today is because I want us to recognize the signs, the early signs of and symptoms of mental illness, so that you can be able to take action and prevent the mental illness or prevent the severity of the mental illness. That's why I thought it was important for me to do this video. The reason as to why I am insisting you either prevent the severity of the disease or you prevent the disease itself is that some mental illnesses are genetic. There are things that are passed from a parent to parent, a parent to child. So in such a scenario, you cannot be able to prevent the mental illness. What you can do is prevent the severity, because for example, maybe bipolar, you can prevent the maybe the severity in that the worst case scenario can be suicide, for example. If we are preventing the mental illness itself, is when things like substance abuse. There are things that you see the child developing these things when they're young, because 50% of the mental illnesses begin before the age of 14 years, and 75% of those illnesses begin before the age of 24 years. But why is it that we come and identify these illnesses while we are adults? Because I think one thing that people not many people understand is that mental illness begins even as a child, as an adolescent. It can begin as young as that. It can begin even younger. That's it. As parents, you're able to understand these warning signs, and you're able to your child does with their day-to-day activities, how they handle school, how they handle work with their friends, how they are around you, their behaviors. Those are things that I'm going to mention. But it's important to understand that you can either prevent the illness or prevent the severity. We are going to go ahead and start with the signs and the symptoms. As my previous video was about importance of mental health, I remember I mentioned about mental illness affects how you think, how you act, and how you feel. Those are the three things that I'm going to begin with, trying to explain how those three things are going to be changed and what you're going to be seeing. Let's begin with how you think, your thought process. One of the most common signs of one of the most common signs and symptoms of thought is suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts are not normal thoughts, but it's one of the things when someone says, I feel like ending my life, I feel like I do not make sense in this world, I do not add value in this world. Those are abnormal thoughts. Another thing about how you think that is going to be of not normal behavior is exaggerated beliefs. You're believing things like magic. You're believing that maybe, for example, the TV is talking to you. If someone is talking, you're believing that that person is talking to you. You're having we call it grandeur in terms of you over exaggerating how things are. You're saying that you are the president of, those are unusual thoughts. In terms of thinking, another thing that is going to be affected is your memory. Your memory, either your short-term memory or your long-term memory, will be affected. You're not going to be able to remember some things. You're going to most of the time that person is going to be asking, maybe when you're with them, how are we here? They don't remember the short things that you did, how they woke up. what the activities that they did. And in terms of memory also, it's going to affect how you concentrate and how your learning abilities, how you concentrate even in your workplace will be different. And even for children, their learning abilities will be different. You find that it's a child who was performing very well in school, and now you find that they're not able even to, they're having difficulties with learning new things. They're able to know what they learned before, for example, but they can't be able to learn new things even when they're in school. So you find that their performance starts deteriorating. Maybe that person used to be the first one in class, but now is the last one. Or those are things that even in childhood you're supposed to, as a parent, you're supposed to be monitoring. And as an adult, even as you look at our day-to-day lives, at work, we're supposed to be, at work, someone will notice there's something off, definitely, because when you're working with someone, you always be able to know if they are performing well or how their performance is. So those are the things that you're going to look at when it comes to thoughts. There are many other things, but we are going to be discussing them now as per the individual disorder. Okay. Yes. The second aspect about the signs and the symptoms we're going to be discussing is feel. We've already talked about how you think. When it comes to how you feel, not the main, but one thing that will change is your mood. Your mood can either be, there's also very many things when you're talking about mood. I'm just going to do a few of them. For example, you can either be depressed. If you're depressed, you're going to be sad, you're going to be low, you're not even going to be able to wake up from bed. Those are things that someone is going to be seeing. You're not going to be happy. Then the person, that is when someone is sad. But don't forget that someone can also be happy, can also be exaggerated happy, can have euphoria. It's not bad to be happy, but now it's abnormal in that you'll be like extremely happy. Okay. Yes, so that's something also to note, that someone can also be happy. Then in terms of, in mood also, someone can be angry. Every time they're just angry. You just look at their face, they're just angry. You ask them even good morning, they just answer you with anger. They just angry in that they're always involved in fights, always want to argue with you. Everything that you say, you can never be right in terms of whatever you say, because they're always going to be angry. So there are many other things that will vary in terms of how they feel. Their mood will change drastically. They can also be disconnected. They can be disconnected with their friends. They don't hang out with their friends. They don't talk to their friends. Disconnected in their marriages. Disconnected as a child, even disconnected from school. That they'll be disconnected from oneself. So it will be hard for them to be able to identify who they even are. They even disconnected from life itself. You are even not able to understand who they are as a person, because that is how disconnected they will be from oneself. Another point is that one can also be excessively worried, can have fear, excessive fear. You can have fear, but no, this will be excessively exaggerated. Exaggerated fear. You're going to have all the time. You're going to be with that person. You're going to notice that they're always going to be afraid of people killing them, afraid of being stolen for, afraid everything that they do, they'll work with being afraid. I think that's all I can put there. As I said when I was talking about the mood, the person being sad or low, the person can also lack loss of initiative, loss of desire. And in terms of loss of desire, as I mentioned, it can also be, an example here is that they'll not be able to get out of bed. Loss of initiative. They do not care how their life is. They do not care how it's going to be. Whether it is there or not. They, loss of initiative and desire. So they are not going to be involved even in many activities they're going to be doing. To move on ahead and now speak about how they act, their actions. Here they'll be having unusual behavior, odd behavior. Let me just put it as unusual behavior. For example, here you're going to be, I'm sure if one or not all of you you've seen someone walking around naked with no clothes. That's an unusual behavior. It's not normal. It's not normal for someone to walk without clothes. Yeah, so those are unusual behaviors. And in terms of action, that is just something that you're going to notice and be like, no, this is not normal behavior. How this person is acting is not the way a normal person would act. We are done with me explaining how the signs and symptoms and how they think, how they act, and how they feel. Now we're going to be continuing with other major signs and symptoms. Another one being that how their sleeping patterns will change. They will either have less sleep, they'll either have insomnia, or they sleep more. Yeah, we call it hypersomnia. So it will either be decreased or increased when it comes to sleep. Also, another one is also when it comes to their eating habits. Their eating habits will also change. They either eat less or eat more. So their day-to-day activities, how they sleep will be either less or more. How they eat will either be less or more. If the person with the mental illness is with a partner, the sexual drive will also change, depending on how you're used to. Yes, let me not talk about it a lot because it varies with different relationships, but you'll notice that your partner's sexual drive will also change. It will be either too much or too little, or the sexual behaviors will be different, because there are also sexual disorders. So you'll start noticing unusual behaviors. Their actions will be different, their sexual behaviors will be different. Okay. Yes. Another point is that they'll have, when you have a loved one and you notice that they start having overuse of drugs, of substance, they'll either be drinking they'll start drinking excessive alcohol, they'll either start taking marijuana, they'll start taking drugs that they never used to take. Or if they used to, for example, drink alcohol, now it will be excessive drinking of alcohol. In that, we'll talk about the alcohol, the substance use. But in terms of alcohol, when do you discover that someone is an alcoholic or think that someone is an alcoholic, is that the normal number of bottles, if they used to take 2 bottles a day, per day, for example, they'll now start taking more. They'll start taking maybe 6, and with time 6 will not be enough, they'll increase. That's one thing you note. Another thing you note is that when they wake up early in the morning, the eye opener, the first thing they'll think about is drinking. Another thing is that you, as a family member, you will note that they do that. You'll note that this is not so. You will talk to them, trying to explain to them that the excessive drinking of alcohol or the excessive usage of drug is not okay. Another major point in terms of substance abuse and when alcohol, is that their day-to-day activities will vary. They will not, if they used to perform well at work, they'll stop performing well at work. They'll even lose their jobs. If they used, anything that they used to do, they'll now not do in terms of the activities. Those are things that you notice. So here it's actually a broad topic, but that's just in general. Those are things to notice when it comes to overuse of alcohol and overuse of drugs. Okay. Another point is that their change in personal care there will be change in personal care. Change in personal care in that they'll stop taking showers, they'll be unkempt, they won't comb their hair, they'll be their general hygiene, their personal hygiene will not be okay. So you'll notice you'll be forcing them maybe to take a shower, their clothes to be clean. Those are things that you're going to notice in terms of personal care. And most, not all of, but sometimes, it's I think it's even because they do not even have that initiative. Again, we go back to how you feel. You don't even have that initiative or desire to do anything good for yourself, because you'll be asking yourself, why is it important for me to do these things? And the last point I'm going to talk about is functioning. The reason why I'm talking about functioning last is because, as we said earlier on, 50% of these illnesses begin before the age of 14. And I wanted to emphasize a lot about this, because we really miss a lot of mental illnesses when it comes to children. When it comes to children, we really miss a lot of mental illnesses because we see it as being normal, so that's why I wanted to talk about this last. So in children, at school, let me begin at school. One is that their performance will change, as I talked on earlier. Because of how their thought changing, their performance will change. They were performing the best, now it will start deteriorating. Remember, memory, they won't be able to learn new things, so their schoolwork will start changing. That's why it's important, even as parents, to be not, I remember when I was young, I used to come home, my mom looks at my homework, if I've done my homework right, my performance, and we used to have a diary where the teacher used to write how you performed today. Those are important things to look at. And things that even as parents you start noting. It's okay, I'm not saying that your child has to be performing well, but the capabilities of your child. You yourself, your child, how your child is, how your child performs in school, and now you'll start noticing that there's a big difference. The other thing in school is that they will be disobedient, not only in school but also at home. They will be disobedient. They'll have temper tantrums. When they usually say when children are 2, they have they call it terrible 2, but nowadays it's terrific 2. But even as they get older, they'll always have temper tantrums. You will be saying no to something that they want. They'll be throwing glasses, they'll be throwing things, they'll be falling down, and they'll be behaving as if how the child was behaving at 2 years. But now the child is 10 years. The child can understand what is good and what is right and what is wrong, but they won't be able to control their emotions. So they'll be disobedient at home as well. When you tell them not to do anything, they will do it. When you tell them not to go anywhere, they will go. Disobedience, and they'll also have temper tantrums. Another thing that you'll notice with the children is that they'll reduce their social activities. They'll reduce going to play with other children, socializing with other children. They'll stop doing it. Either they stop or they reduce, and they'll always be avoiding to do those things. If they used to come, I remember when I was young, I used to, from school, go put my books down, either change my uniform, or even sometimes I never even used to change my uniform. I go outside, I start playing with my uniform. We play, and every time I'm told to come back home, I do not want to come back home. I want to continue playing. So imagine how I was, and then all of a sudden I come back from school and I don't want to go outside. I don't want to play with children outside. I don't want to socialize. Even when, for example, if my cousins come over to my house, I do not want to socialize with them. I just sit somewhere in a corner, reading a book, doing whatever I'm going to be doing, avoiding people. You see, so that is something that my parents would have noticed if I had started that behavior, and that is something you can also notice. Some children, when they are young, they either undergo trauma. Most of the times it's usually trauma, and the child will start having nightmares. The child will start waking up every single day, waking you up, telling you about nightmares. So that is something also to note, nightmares. And before I forget, when it comes to schoolwork, we've talked about failing in school. So they'll either fail or even avoid school completely. They'll start fighting to avoid school. They'll start pretending they're sick all the time, pretending, there's something that they're going to be doing to avoid school. But when children avoid school, it can either be, yes, it's something that it's a sign that you're seeing, that you're noticing, or there might be something else going on in school. So that's also varies, because it's not necessarily all the time children refuse school that they have a mental illness. You see, it can be something that is happening in school. Maybe they're being bullied, or something bad is happening that they're fighting not to go to school. So sometimes, as parents, also note when a child does not want to go to school, it can be they do not want to go to school because they want to sleep. Yes, I do not dispute that, but also put in mind, I think it also depends with the duration of time they're refusing to go to school. One day it can be they're pretending, 2 days they're pretending, but if they do not want to go to school for a week, 2 weeks, a whole month, and they're fighting with you, you must investigate to see what the problem is. Yes, so those are the few things to look at when it comes to children when it comes to adolescent, teenagers. Those are things to look at. We'll be discussing more about this we'll be discussing more about childhood psychiatry, and we are going to be able to know in detail what to look at when it comes to your children. Okay, in terms of functioning, which was my last point, also functioning at work, the person will also have difficulties in functioning at work, and I think all these signs and symptoms are actually related to each other. I think I've been able to explain at least the major signs and symptoms of early warning signs of mental illnesses. I've talked about almost 10 points, and I'll write them down in my description box so that you're able to understand. I want you to note these signs and symptoms are not necessarily telling you that someone is mentally ill. You see, I might be sad today, but tomorrow I'm okay. You see, I might be sad this whole week, but the next week for me is a good week. You get? So the reason why I'm explaining these early warning signs is that when you notice one or more signs over a period of time, it doesn't necessarily don't conclude that I said that that's a mental illness sign. What it shows you is that it gives you the antenna to think that this person needs help, meaning that this person will need to be investigated further for you now to come to a conclusion. Mental illness and mental disorders are not the easiest thing to diagnose, and that's why we usually use we have something that we use when you're even looking at signs and symptoms. They say someone has to be sad or low for a period of 2 weeks. There are so many things that we come to think about, because they understand that even someone's mood can change. There are so many things with this day-to-day life that can change. And of note, my point that I wanted to pass is that it just enables you to be able to identify that there's something wrong and seek for further help. My lovely people, we have come to the end of the video, and I hope it has been an educative video for you. You've been able to understand the signs and the symptoms, the early warning signs, and you've been able to recognize. And now I'm hoping that you're able to do that even for the people that you love, the people who are close to you. You're able to now identify if there is a problem. If you're new here, if this is your first time watching my video, don't forget to subscribe and get more content about mental health issues. And yeah, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Forget to like my videos. Don't forget to share my videos. And remember, if your mind is not okay, you are not okay. Bye bye.